Um, Bottom line up front, November, December, and January were the bloodiest months since the beginning of the war. This is where we saw the intervention of the Russian mobilized forces. Hey, it's good to see you, Constantine. And it turns out that when you grab guys off the streets of, St. Petersburg and give them a rifle, they don't fight that well, which is part of the reason why we're seeing about 50% of all Russian casualties are coming with Wagner and other PMC groups to the order of, in the last 54 days, while the mainline Russian army took about 15,500 losses, so that's killed, missing, and captured. They, as well as 60,800 and change wounded, including lightly wounded, which is about 40% of that number. Wagner took between 23,700 and 23,900 losses, including killed, missing, and captured, and 53,000 injured. So let's let those numbers sink in for a moment. Broadly speaking, over the last 54 days, since really the beginning of December until the end of January, Russia lost about 39,500 people and had wounded, including 40% of this being lightly wounded, 114,000 injured. About 40% of that number is due to things like sick leave and being hospitalized. Another 40% of that is lightly wounded, and then 20% of those aren't walking or playing baseball anymore. They've been amputees. What's important to note here is that while the Ukrainian numbers are also rather unfortunate, we're looking at closer to 15,000 losses and about 59,000 injured in the same time period, about half, a little less than half of the Russian numbers, actually. We are seeing a dramatic difference in the medical care provided. On the Russian side, if you just get a concussion, they may not even notice it. They're having about one medical personnel per 80 soldiers. If you've ever been to a hospital and had to wait in a waiting room, you might know what that feels like. Now imagine that they say, oh no, you're fine, Tovarich. Go grab your rifle, run into Soledar tomorrow. It doesn't usually work out well. What we've been seeing here is that Russians, frankly, if you have a head wound now, you're probably going to die. That's just, if you don't get treated, you don't get to be that lucky number one contestant out of 80 people, you're going to probably die. They don't have the level of medical care on the individual soldier the way the Ukrainians do. And frankly, the just severe disregard for their own soldiers' life exhibited by Wagner and other groups is manifesting in soldiers that have lightly injured or moderately injured wounds being stuck in these positions at the front line for days and weeks. And so then you start to see things like infections. There's actually been a large rise in certain bloodborne infections. I believe HIV and hepatitis have continued to run rampant among the Russian military. There's a variety of factors to that. Has a lot more to do with IV drug abuse, as I understand it, than any sexual contact. But that becomes an even bigger issue because then the Russian medics and doctors, even back in the lines in the hospitals, don't want to touch you because now you have poisoned blood. And so you have people who get sectioned off into separate units and then they basically just get left to rot. It's not exactly a good time. On the Ukrainian side, while circumstances remain challenging, as we've seen in Soledar, you actually kind of have the other problem, where you have soldiers who are lightly wounded and are offered to be taken off the front lines, saying, no, I'm fine, I can hold out for a little while longer. There are a lot of benefits to this. Unfortunately, sometimes there can be consequences where things are not left treated, or in case of Soledar, people can be exposed to difficult situations where perhaps they could have been replaced with somebody else. I'm not there, you're not there. I don't think any of us have the right to say what people can do with their lives in that sort of situation.
So
Um,
I have one comment on this, or at least it's tangentially related. I I heard today that one major difference between the Russian care and Ukrainian care is that Ukrainians are given fluids immediately, at like as soon as possible. They're given fluids intravenously to replace their lost fluids from bleeding. And the Russians apparently almost never get that treatment. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I apologize for cutting you off. Um, volume replacement. Just think about it. You have, good old couple quarts of blood in your body, right? think about what happens when you donate blood. You feel lightheaded. It takes time. Now, blood for on a very, very general scale is crucially important to a lot of things in your body, including dealing with things like infection, as well as wound healing, surprisingly enough. You need clotting factors. So if you don't have the volume of fluid and pressure in your veins, they will collapse. And then things get pretty rough pretty quickly. Now, that's when you start seeing things like IV bags. Now, IVs require a little bit of logistics. You're generally not just hooking one up into a stream and pumping it into somebody else's arm. Yes, technically, back in the good old bad days, you could put a needle in a good universal donor's arm and put it in somebody else's arm. I strongly suspect the Russians are not doing that. Look into the whole aforementioned hepatitis pandemics that are going on now. Without that, you are really just you're not saving anybody's lives, you're just keeping them dying a little bit slower. If you cannot adequately deal with arm replacement, people will go into shock and they will just die. And the Russians do not have, from what I've seen, the widespread use of really anything beyond old medical gauze pads and tourniquets that are about as effective as whatever belt you are wearing right now. As a consequence, if you get any worse than, losing your hand, losing the front part of your arm, and you don't get lucky with a tourniquet, then that's about all she wrote. Because the quality of care for the Russians is generally less. I think that's fair to say. And the time to that care is generally longer than what we've seen on the Ukrainian side. Granted, there's extreme examples for both. Solidar, things got a little rough there, to put it mildly, and that had some issues. But on the Russian side, there were times down in Zaporizhia months ago, I want to say a month, 2 months ago, where even if you made it to the hospital, there was a 50% chance, 50, of you just dying there because they did not have adequate medical care, even at what should have been a casualty collection and, sort of emergency hospital point.
And I think it's important to talk about why Ukraine is better at this, and it's not because they're like, smarter or whatever. It's because they learned the hard way, frankly. Ukraine did not have good medical treatment. It was on par with Russia at the beginning of this war in 2014 or whatever, and they have they've had to learn how to get better at it over time. They've been helped by NATO coming in and helping train them and get them towards a NATO standard. Not necessarily, maybe not as good, but at least close enough. So Ukraine learned the hard way, and Russia has not learned this lesson yet, and they're kind of paying the price for that.
I will comment on this as well. We also we have Ukraine has pretty good doctors. We always had a good doctors, and in 2014 the treatment the case of act was really poor. Of course, we did not have instructors. We did not have medics properly set up medics. But what Ukraine has is the really strong volunteer movement. We had volunteers who go from one military unit to another one. They would show the basics of the tactical medicine, like how to pull someone out, how to stop the bleeding. So everyone went through the basic trainings, and this is the one of the key things to survive is to be stabilized at the start. And then of course Western support came a bit. I don't want to underplay it, but the medical part is mostly it's Ukraine itself. Like you said, we learned it the hard way, but we did. I know personally a couple of medics that work right now, Ukrainian doctors. I've spoken with even before 2000, before the wide-scale invasion in February. I've spoken with one of the guys who actually treated me when I was there, and he's a doctor. He's a major right now. a military doctor, and he was telling me that Ukraine right now has so much military medicine experience that no one in the world pretty much has, and they had some Western countries specialists would come and learn from them because no one had so many shrapnel wounds. No one had so many gun wounds of the specific ammo because it's hard to compare the, for example, gun wounds that you get from the gun violence in civil life and comparing to the bullets from the AK 74 like standard or SVD or PKM like LPS rounds. It's a bit different. It's not a bit different. It's totally different. And they were sharing that experience with them. I remember. So it works the both ways.
Constantine's absolutely right. There is no replacement for experience when you're dealing with traumatic injuries. There's a reason why physicians in the United States will frequently, especially military physicians, will frequently go and do their residency programs at what's called the knife and gun clubs. Inner city hospitals that are particularly afflicted by cases of either gun violence or, knife violence. We see this in some areas of Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, other cities that are unfortunately afflicted, because you can read all of the literature you want, but very rarely are traumatic injuries clean. You might expect that. They usually happen in dirty areas. People don't take care of them immediately, perfectly right away. So you need to have a wide breadth of experience before you can be confident enough that when you see a shard of artillery that has torn through two of somebody's ligaments and exited out or gotten stuck in another part of their body, that you don't just look at that and have your eyes roll back. You go, oh, I think I know what to do here. It is a very, I wish there was a perfect way to learn it that didn't involve having to see all of it, but that's the world we live in. And it is the tragic, albeit silver lining of this circumstance where the more you do it, the better you get, but the more you do it, it means the more you're dealing with.
Okay. So um language learner. Do you want to talk about the size of the militaries between Ukraine and Russia?
Sure. So let me pull it up here. Sorry.
Because I can put this on the screen.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. So broadly speaking, we have, just in general terms, there has been mobilization going on for the last several months. When we say mobilization, it's not quite the same thing in Ukraine as it is in Russia, right? Broadly speaking, Ukraine has been able to meet its mobilization goals without resorting to the mass compulsory conscription that we've seen from all segments of Russian society. Now, there are pluses and minuses to this. Technically, on paper, if you include every able-bodied, military, paramilitary force, man, woman, and child in the Russian Federation, there are more people ready. Right? But as we've seen, that doesn't necessarily translate to how many people can actually hold a gun and how many people can use it. There are logistical bottlenecks. We've seen that really since November, right? October, even, when Russia started to mobilize people after they had taken such heavy losses. At this point, there is a carrying capacity of roughly, it's probably gone up a bit, roughly about 300,000 people that Russian can mobilize in a single discrete unit of time. When they did their 300,000 mobilization, they actually had to pause their regular conscription because they couldn't add another 100,000. Now, when that ended, and this is going to be a shocker to all of you, I'm sure, Putin lied. He did not just end mobilization. In fact, he publicly didn't end it. It just continued. Happened a little more surreptitiously. We've seen this in the form of mobilizing the most vulnerable elements of Russian society, as far as people in actual psychiatric hospitals, people in prisons, people in the ethnic minority regions in the East who are desperately impoverished. What has happened is we've seen, yes, a number of those guys got thrown right into the front lines and basically were used to try and stop the Ukrainian advance with their bodies, with varying levels of success. Some of them did get trained. Not all of them went. What we're seeing now is that Russia's plan, it appears at this time, is to utilize the still rather barely trained conscripts who have dubious morale in a number of instances, as well as dubious levels of training, and try and put them into an offensive in less than ideal terrain conditions, given the fact that the ground has not yet fully frozen, and so they cannot have the level of mechanized support that they may want. So you're dealing with people who 2 months ago were walking down the street thinking about whether they're getting married, and now they've been giving an AK and they're told you're pushing to Liman. There's varying levels of success with that strategy. In broad numbers, at this point, there are a number of Russian groupings, very, very generally in the contiguous borders of Ukraine. So that's in everything from Crimea to the Donbass. There's about 300, 320,000 Russian soldiers. Now, what I'm not seeing here is how many of those are combat armed soldiers, how many of those are support. What we're seeing on the Ukrainian side is in terms of just combat armed soldiers, the people pulling the triggers, we're looking at about 460,000. Now, as everybody knows, there's a lot more to a military than just people pulling triggers. There is a roughly equivalent amount of Ukrainian soldiers who are also involved in all the logistics support, medical intelligence, all 9 yards. I do not have a good idea on what that looks like in terms of division on the Russian side. There is also continuous training going on the Ukrainian side, both at home and abroad. Broadly speaking, there's another 200,000 people who are being trained to support the existing 420 some odd thousand individuals. The Russian side of things is, they don't have total numerical superiority. They do have forces arranged outside. Now, this is one where I will welcome Konstantin and Andrew to disagree with me. They have a complement of troops in Belarus. I do not have the same concerns about them as others do. In that it seems they're basically being trained at the Belarusian government's expense. And I personally call it a gut feeling, call it looking at the data here, whatever. I do not see the risk of a grand northern assault towards, say, Rivne or Kiev or Kharkiv or Sumy or whatnot coming about anytime soon. The Russians seem to be more focused on the Donbass, especially given Putin's statement today, where I believe he said by March, I don't know if that was the beginning of March or the end of March, that he wanted to have fully, liberated the territories of this DPR, LPR, which would mean the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. That's going to be a tough nut to crack. What do you guys think? Do you think that the forces that they have there arranged and the terrain conditions are enough to allow that? Or is this just yet another pipe dream?
Um, First, I just want to see. I changed my microphone to be much quieter. I'm just curious how it sounds now. And second, well, I'm just I'm gonna actually I'm gonna wait. The Constantine, you talk. I want to see what they say.
Well, for me to talk, I should have listened to what the originally were saying. No, I'm just joking. So I do consider Belarus is a big problem. I do consider that it's quite dangerous, and I did believe they would attack. They didn't. But once again, like this is. You need to take measures and you need to address it. When the enemy is mobilized, when you have the soldiers and the equipment ready to go in constant training, you have to address it. I'm not saying that that they're gonna attack tomorrow, but if there is like a 10% chance of that's going to happen, you must understand that you have to be ready for that. And being ready is having your troops, having your fortifications, having battle readiness, which is important because there is a difference when the troops live in the trenches ready to fight, and there are troops living at their homes, and they're going to be called up in the matter if Ukraine is attacked. And one of the significance of the Belarus border, is that it's really close to Kiev. and Kiev is the center. If we lose Kiev, we lose everything. And distances, like if you can measure a danger for people to have understanding, it's, I don't know, 60 kilometers, 70 kilometers.
It's about 60 miles.
Yeah, so it's 100 kilometers, 70 miles, and it's the distance is really short. And that's why it's every kilometer lost there is super important, and that's why just underplaying it is a bad idea. Not like, if they don't attack, that's great, but you have to have your forces prepared. You have to have your, losing, even losing such key cities as Kharkiv, for example, is bad, dangerous, but you can take it back, like Kherson. We lost Kherson, we took it back. Of course, we had some advantages over there, but still. But losing Kiev is like, you will not take back Kiev. That's why it's super important to not to underestimate this threat. But once again, the chances of their attack are quite low. But like in theory of probability, you multiply the chances of things happening by the value of by the impact of what it's going to be, and the impact of assault on Kiev, if successful, is just, it has no value. It's just priceless for them, and it's going to be the end for us. That's why we all are really nervous about it.
So, as I understand, the bulk of Russian forces are not necessarily positioned around the Chernobyl exclusion zone, nor primed for a direct assault along the axis towards Kiev itself. What the concern I have seen is actually around the town of Rivne, which is to the west. Now, Rivne is important for a number of reasons, most importantly, perhaps, being the nuclear power plant around it. There was a Ukrainian National Guard unit. This has been reported publicly. They are specifically staged to defend these nuclear power plants, and this one here was activated. And there's also been a number of other very combat capable Ukrainian forces who have served with distinction in everywhere from Bakhmut to Soledar and elsewhere, who have been put along the border. The risk, as I had seen it expressed, was that Russia would not try and assault the city of multiple millions of people, but that they would try and sprint down to Rivne, find a way to either surround or cut off the nuclear power plant, hold that territory, and by doing so, basically put a bullet in the Ukrainian energy grid for the foreseeable future. There's a lot of obstacles there. One of the big ones is that it's pretty marshy to the north of there. The ground has not frozen in the way they'd like. This is not February 23rd. The border is far more heavily fortified, and the Russian units there do not have the same level of support from air, artillery, and surprise that they enjoyed on the 24th. But it's like you said, just because little old me sitting on a couch somewhere in America thinks that this isn't a big concern does not mean that it isn't. And it's much better to plan for the worst and hope for the best than vice versa. So, it's still something to keep an eye on. But if you're taking a vacation to Chernobyl anytime soon, I wouldn't recommend it. But you may not be cloudy with the chance of artillery in the next, week or two, to put it mildly.
Yeah, and this, I don't know if my mic sounds good now, but anyways, Volya says that there are 70,000, or 75,000 men in Belarus, and most of them are in the west of the country, which is roughly what I've been hearing for several weeks. And also, I believe these 75,000 men are mostly getting trained. They're not really like assault groups or anything. They're more people who are getting trained up to fight somewhere else, not to fight here.
Almost certainly. I mean, that's as far as I understand it.
Okay. So, a few more points about this Volya piece is that they say that wait, I have to find where I am in this article. Okay, so they're claiming that the Russian Federation is about 815,000 men, and about 360,000 of them are already in Ukraine. And the Ukrainian forces, they claim, are about 620 to 630,000, with around 350 to 400,000 support units, and another 200,000 are being actively trained. Now, whether these stats are accurate or not, I don't know. They're roughly in line with what you'd expect from, just seeing other sources. Like the New York Times, I think, said that Russia has 320,000, and so that's New York Times reported fewer than this. But generally speaking, it seems about right that they would have, this many, around 800,000 men total. But the main point is that Russia and Ukraine are roughly have parity in terms of their forces.
Ukraine can annex Belarus first. We have a comment like that.
Sounds like you're hiding in a cupboard, Constantine, with your phone like 10 feet away from your face. So, blink twice if you're being held hostage.
I'm not, but I'm close to that. But don't you hear me well, or what is it?
There's a lot of white noise.
It sounds like you're standing behind a waterfall.
Okay, let me try to fix that. Tell me if it's better in one moment.
Okay. Well, while you do that, I'm going to turn on this funny video again, just because I think it's funny. The video cracks me up. Okay, so I just want to cover the basic news today and just kind of get it out of the way. I have no news from the general Kupiansk area. Moving down to like the Makivka area, Russia is trying to push east towards Makivka and Nevsky. They're trying to push west towards these towns, and they claim to have moved roughly, I think, 1 kilometer in this area. You see, like, there's a lot of these forest strips that have been a gray area recently where Ukraine has been pushing east, but apparently now Russia is trying to push west. So 1 kilometer is like, I don't know, like that far. It's like, it doesn't even close the gap in this gray area. Roughly the same is true around Chervono-Popivka, where they claim to have moved maybe 1 to 2 kilometers west, which would roughly put them, if they moved the full extent they're claiming, they would be on the Donetsk Oblast border, roughly. I haven't actually seen proof, but that's their claim. They also claim to have moved around 2 kilometers west towards Yampolivka. And they claim to have moved about 1 kilometer south from Dubrova and whatnot. But all in all of these changes which I don't really know how to map because they're really claims and not really backed up by like solid proof. But all of their claims are within this yellow gray area. It more or less means that Ukraine has not actually lost ground. They're just kind of Russia's claiming this gray area. Today, Russia claimed to have captured Bilohorivka, but I have not seen proof of that. I wouldn't be surprised if they captured it because the town is very difficult to resupply. The only road in the town is completely covered by Russian tanks. They're hiding in the hills to the east. There's ongoing fighting in Sperna. There's Russia captured this little tiny town of Mykolaiivka today, which was pretty much expected because it's just such a small town and they had controlled all of the roads to it. And so anyway, they captured this little tiny town, moved up like 1 or 2 kilometers that way. And more or less the Krasnohora and Bakhmut, pretty much everything is status quo. There's heavy fighting in the north of Bakhmut. I heard a report today that Wagner may have taken some ground, but it didn't really specify where. And he also said, like, don't be worried about it because it doesn't really matter. They expect to take it back like tomorrow or something. In the Epitny area, Wagner has pushed west. I think I mentioned this in the last stream. They've been unable to push into the town from Epitny. Like this way, they've been unable to do that, so they have resorted to moving west. They're trying to get to around here, which is the cemetery, so they can use this road to get deeper into the city itself. But so far, they've only roughly moved about this far. Around Ivanivska, really nothing has happened. Just like there's heavy fighting, lots of losses on each side, but no significant movement. And there's still fighting in Volyana, although the forces here they've taken so many casualties, they don't really have assault forces anymore, so they can't really move or do much. They're just kind of losing men for nothing, really. The same kind of goes for Pervomaisky. This whole area is held by Ukrainian Marines who are doing a really good job. I think there's 2 brigades of Marines here.
Which brigade is that? Do you know?
It's the 36th is one of them, and I think the other one's like the 34th. I can't remember the second one. But I know there's 2 brigades of Marines. And the 36th are is the main brigade. They relieved the 57th, I think. The 57th pulled out, and the 36th replaced them, and they've been holding the area since. There's, still fighting in Marinka, but no changes. Russia is trying to move south to bypass Marinka, but they have not been able to move. And in Vuhledar, Russian forces have run out of their assault groups, and now they're forcing their non-assault groups to assault, which is not going well for them. They're sustaining high casualties, but they still have many thousands of men in reserves, like, I don't know, like 4,000 or 5,000 or something, just like sitting in this general area waiting to fight. In Kryolivka, which is south of Vuhledar, Ukraine performed heavy artillery strikes, which both Russians and Ukrainians are saying Russia took a lot of casualties in this town today. I think there was one barracks or a headquarters or something. I'm not really sure what it was, but it collapsed, and they've been like digging through it all day to now. There's here in Novo-Ukrainka, Ukraine took out an ammo warehouse that just completely exploded and did a ton of damage there too. So, but beyond that, not much happened today, or really yesterday. There was a missile strike near Berdyansk. There, an ammo depot destroyed in Arnostaivka. There was an ammo depot destroyed in Olhivka, or a Ukrainian ammo depot. A Ukrainian ammo depot destroyed in Zelonivka. And then beyond that, there were a few missile strikes in Slovyansk and Kramatorsk. The missile strike today in Kramatorsk was really close to the strike that was last night. That where they hit an apartment building last night, and today they hit another apartment building that was like on the same street or something, or like maybe like a block or two away. But other than that, that's pretty much the news today. Not too much, all considering. The most interesting report to me is that the Ukrainian General Staff are claiming that Russia is preparing to destroy the bridges in Tavolzhanka, which is, this town north of Kupiansk that Ukraine has been kind of casually attacking for like 2 months or something. So that kind of stuck out to me. And obviously they would not destroy these bridges unless they feared a Ukrainian attack. But yeah, that's kind of the news for today. I have some videos to show, which are fun, some of them. I'm going to mute myself and everybody. I'm going to mute everybody and play this video.
Принял тебя сопровождать.
I'm gonna stop the video there because I don't want to get banned. But I just think that video is pretty funny. I love the editing. I have some other fun videos that don't require sound.
Yeah, so it illustrates. Yeah, I like how they made the commercial and then
Yeah.
rolled out the destruction. It's unfortunate that it's been only the tractor was hit directly, but I do think that because of the shockwave and the shrapnel, I do think that probably the radar station of the door, the launcher itself is destroyed as well. And the other comment that I would do regarding this is, why the hell are they bringing Arctic protection system, or Arctic air defense system designed for Arctic into Ukraine, which has a really mild winter right now.
I have no idea. But
Well,
here's
of course,
a
because that's the only thing that they have. They don't have that much left. That's what I'm thinking. They just bring in what they do have.
but this video. I'm not gonna play a sound for this, but this doesn't really matter. But this is just a fun video. This is a what's it called? A Panzerhaubacke or whatever they're called. I don't remember.
Panzerhauser. Like
Howitzer.
I have a German neighbor, and I'm mocking her. Today was the name of this howitzer. Panzerhauser 2000.
Yeah, that was it firing its because it's designed to or at least it's capable of shooting multiple shots that all impact at roughly the same time.
Can you replay it? Can you replay it?
Yeah.
It's the first shot. The barrel is lowered a bit, right?
Yeah.
That's basically how it should work, as I understand it. The first shot you point it up, the highest trajectory, and then you lower it with each shot to have the round travel faster, but you have a different propellant load. The one that shoots out the propellant load is the one that shoots out the projectile itself. So you put it lower. At the same time you add a bit more propellant, so it flies further. The angle is automatically calculated. You do 3 of those shots, and because of this, all 3 of them are going to land at the same time, right?
Yep.
Is that?
This is a video that Misfit wanted me to show. Just artillery getting messed up. Okay, I have more videos to show, more fun videos. Here's this one. I'm gonna turn the sound on, and I'm curious if you want to translate it, Konstantin. Although I have to,
Yep.
I have to
Can
mute.
you hear me well? Is it?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's white noise, but it's fine. I have to mute both of us to play the video, otherwise it's weird. But then afterwards, you can
I
translate
can
it.
mute myself. I don't need you muting.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just joking. Try being aggressive.
Сука. Нихуя себе, я хуею, ебует нахуй. Аккумулятор забрал. Ого, уебаем. Ого.
That's the video. I can explain it. It might need explanation, but they were blowing up a T-72. It was a T-72 B3 that they blew up, and they were very excited about it. Konstantin?
Yeah, so there is not that much to translate because it's they were just saying, oh, fuck me, fucking hell, fuck. Let's
Yeah.
get the fuck out of here. With a more, let's say, I cannot curse well in English because I don't know too much words. But they were talking about basically getting the fuck out of there. And also someone said in the middle, well, let's make sure we take the batteries with us.
Yeah, batteries are important. Here's another fun video. This is you can play Guess That Vehicle. What weapon system do you think this is, Constantine?
Oh, this is Stormer, right?
It
I think
is.
this is a
Yep.
Stormer.
I believe it has. I might be wrong. I think it has a star streak on top of it.
Yeah, it has
Yeah.
Star Streak on top of it. It has 12 launchers, and it's pretty capable, short range capabilities. And those are the things why you don't see too many Russian airplanes flying around. It's a pretty cool system. It's super fast.
Yeah, it's super fast, and then you can't use any, like you can't use flares or chaff or anything like that to break the lock because it's completely laser guided.
So that's one of the things that make it good or make it bad. One of them is that you have to keep the line of sight,
Yeah.
and you have to track it. It takes skill, and it makes you stay in the field. But if you consider the speed of the missile, it's actually you don't have to stay for too long. But yeah, it's because you actually track it, you guide it. It's has much more like it's much harder to evade. You cannot drop the chaff. You say chaff.
Yeah.
We call those like heat traps.
Well, chaff is for radar guided.
Oh. So yeah, you cannot. It will not fuck you. So it's really good system.
Okay, I have another fun video. This is a video that has an aftermath photo, so that's fun.
Dad?
And BMP3 is gone.
I like how they paused it and gave the little freeze frame with the label for anybody who didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and here is the photograph of the damage. And I have to keep in mind that this is a anti-personnel drone. It basically is like a flying hand grenade. So this damage, I don't know what this damage means to a BMP. Like I don't like this.
So my question is, how did they get this picture?
The Russians posted this.
And for some reason, they only posted the part with the gun to make sure that nothing else. But exactly this is seen, right?
It's true. I wish I could show the.
So which charge once again? Could you repeat which charge the drone is carrying?
I think it's basically just like a flying hand grenade. Like I don't. I can't. What's the name of this weapon? Let me see. I forgot the name of it.
But there are different hand grenades. There are like
But this is like a suicide drone. That it's
yeah, I
like a
understand,
Ukrainian
but
suicide drone.
yeah, I understand that. I've seen lots of videos of this is a mega, this is police actually doing this, and I've seen drones with RKH grenades. Those are basically like shape charge grenade with a shape charge inside of it. And there are of course the grenades that just hand grenades, real hand grenades, but how you gonna detonate it? Or they don't have a mechanism, but they detonate them on impact. So it's unclear. I think if it was the RKH, the shape charge grenade, it would yeah, maybe if it hit just the barrel, that would be all. And you can still could still use it as just as arm as a transport, but the picture is taken in such a way that you cannot assess the real damage.
Yeah.
But it damaged it definitely, and I can imagine the optics are damaged as well, probably.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, they used an anti-personnel anti-personnel drone to, at minimum, at minimum, ruin the day of those BMP people. like I imagine they were upset at exploding, even if the vehicle might not be damaged. It's still upsetting. I found two more videos that have no context, but I still think they're really funny. So here's one. And here's the other one. I have no idea what this is. Like, is this like a depot for storing pyramids?
Yeah, probably. I would suggest that they're probably stashed
Or
there.
or is it
For
a
the-
truck that pushed pyramids off the side of the road to clear it?
That's too much pyramids for one truck.
But anyways, I have some more serious videos. I've shown a lot of videos of Marinka, but I have more videos of Marinka.
I think I might actually have to run real quick. I've got some work I have to
All right,
do.
you
But
can.
hopefully I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Take it easy.
Thanks for coming, language learner.
And thank you guys for doing this.
Let's listen. Language. We can hear you. And hear you. So this is Marinka video.
Yes. This is the apparently shooting like incendiary rounds of some sort into the city. I don't even know why you would at this point. What is there to burn? It's just I just don't understand. I just don't understand. Like what is the purpose? There's like forces here if you don't see them.
I saw the tank moving. Yeah, the tank is moving.
This is just kind of what fighting in Marinka looks like. This is why like I don't know how to describe this fighting because it's not like Russia can't break through. They're kind of stuck, but there is still fighting. So like I just never know how to describe it.
Um, and yeah, have you seen Vuhledar video?
I've seen Volodar videos, but I don't know which video you're talking about.
There were, I think, thermobaric strikes in
Oh yeah,
Vuhledar.
that's yeah. I don't have it on hand, but I did see that. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. Um, this is Kherson, which photograph of Kherson tonight, basically. I don't know what's on fire. I saw some Russian posts claiming it was like ammo or something, but I have no idea. But they're very happy that Kherson is on fire. But beyond that, the um, the news today was relatively light. Other than, I think the most interesting thing was those two Volya reports. And whether you think Volya is a good source of information is a different story. I still find it interesting to read, even if they're not necessarily reliable. And I'm not saying they're not reliable. I just don't know how reliable they are. But yeah, that's the I think we're in like the calm before the storm right now. I think a lot of things are going to happen quickly in the near future. Perhaps like this weekend even. Uh, but yeah, I don't know if anybody has a question to ask.
Please, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask. We're going to be happy to try to answer them if we can.
Yeah, I think the next like 5 or 6 months are going to be just intense. That's what I'm expecting. The large Russian attack that people are talking about is this attack around Kremena. They're attacking south, they're attacking west along this entire line. They're more or less trying to push Ukraine back to this river. They want to take basically all of this area. That's kind of their goal. And then ultimately, I imagine their ultimate goal is to take Le Mans, I think. Others, I've seen people claim that taking Yampol would be enough. They don't necessarily need Le Mans. They can just get here and then move south from there. But I don't know. Personally, I really think they want to take back Le Mans. I know a lot of Russians took losing Le Mans as like a personal insult that they could lose. I don't know why they're so attached to this, but that they took it as like an insult to Russia that they lost this city or town or whatever, and they want it back. But it's easier said than done because of this river. This river really complicates everything. So I don't know. And then the biggest issue of the river is that there's really only like one bridge across it, and this bridge is like a death trap. And
Oh, they can always use pontoon bridges. They're
yeah,
pretty good at
you
that.
can use pontoon bridges, but there's a lot
They're
of
really good
issues.
at
There's a
that.
lot of issues
We've
with
seen
pontoon
videos.
bridges though, because Ukraine still has Seversk, and they have all of this high ground. So these pontoon bridges are vulnerable, and I guess you could cross further north, but pontoon bridges have their own issues. So I don't know. Oh yeah, the aid from the United States. I drew circles. These circles are roughly the range of Ukraine's, well, the range of the new weapon systems that the United States is supplying to Ukraine. Yeah, the GLSDB. The name just makes me laugh. But anyway, but yeah, these are roughly the range. So basically, they will be able to hit out into the Sea of Azov, which is nice, and also deep into Russia, which is also nice. They'll be
So
able to,
how much is each round worth, and how much explosive equivalent they carry?
I think they're 250-pound bombs, or maybe they might be 500-pound
150
bombs.
pound.
Like,
That's more than the standard.
yeah, because
Kilo.
it's from what I understand, they're taking like airplane bombs and like strapping wings to it and then attaching that to a rocket. So it's like three different weapons like glued together.
Well, yeah, but it still has like to fly that. You still what's the speed? Like what is the speed there though? Because you
I
either
don't
fly fast or you fly far usually.
I don't know the speed. They're shot. They can be shot from a HIMARS. Yeah, it's basically you take like a HIMARS rocket, and instead of having the the HIMARS warhead on top, it has like an airplane bomb on top. It's basically like a
Yeah. So does it get it high and then it just loiter like just just flies? How you say this?
it's
It's planiruет, but it's like does it like a plane just yeah, does it just glide over the target or
yes, it
shatters?
glides. When I got yelled at when I said it was, I said, so it's basically a cruise missile, and then they yelled at me and said no. So, but I still think of it as like a cruise missile. I can show some
It's guided,
pictures.
right? It can guide itself based on GPS coordinates.
Yeah, so from what I understand, this is what it looks like. It's like a little, it's like a little airplane attached to a bomb.
Yeah, so it looks small, but we don't have the diameter from the picture, from this specific
Yeah, it's a
picture.
250-pound bomb, and it's launched like this from
Once
from a
again,
rocket.
250-pound bomb.
Yeah,
That's really a lot. That's even more capable. I think it's easier to intercept probably because it's
well,
the terminal speed is slower
it's speed,
if it glides.
but it's also like kind of small, don't you think? It's kind of. I imagine it's harder to intercept than you'd think. Like how hard is like like intercepting like an artillery shell? Like it's not going that fast, right? But like it's
Or artillery shell goes really fast.
well, I mean, like this is going to be going pretty fast too, don't you think? Like I don't know its actual speed.
Well, if it glides, I would imagine that the speed is probably pretty low.
Because it's going, it starts out with the speed of like the HIMARS rocket, so that's going like booking it.
Yeah, so So my take on it that it starts as a HIMARS rocket, so it goes pretty fast. Then at some point, it just the HIMARS stage detaches, and the bomb itself just keeps gliding and just navigates, and it has probably a couple of engines to help it guide itself, and in the end, like it's just a gliding speed. I don't know. Maybe it has missile capabilities because the wings that I see, it's not really uh, you know for 250 pound bomb, but they are pretty small to glide too far.
The JDAMs, I believe JDAMs have a glide ratio of 7 to 1, I think. So for every foot it drops, it flies like 7 feet, I think. And I imagine this is roughly the same.
And the speed of the JDAM,
Well, it's dropped by an airplane, so whatever the speed of the airplane was.
yeah. So it's drop. It's like and it loses the speed over time, right?
Yeah.
Because it has no its own engine. So yeah, my take on it that's the terminal speed. Maybe someone has read it from the open sources.
I
You're
don't,
welcome to post a link on Tell this. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think. I think we're mostly just discussing and speculating this stuff.
anyways, their maximum range is 151 kilometers, and all of these circles are somewhere between 150 and 151 kilometers because I drew them all by hand. But all of these circles are smaller than its actual range, so its range is actually bigger than this slightly. But I personally think, just by gut intuition, I think that these would be difficult to intercept. I don't know. But being able to drop bombs in these circles is a pretty big deal, because you're being able to hit like pretty deep into Belarus, deep into Russia, deep into Crimea, and they'll be able to hit literally anywhere within Ukraine, I imagine. Maybe like the very edge they can't, but yeah, still can't hit the Kerch Bridge though. Still out of range, Constantine.
Yeah, a lot of range. The range is good, and the payload is good. Like if it's 250 50 rounds,
Yeah, that's
50 pounds. It's really a lot. It's how much this GMLRS has. I think it's 90 pounds, or how much does it have? We have a lot of experts here in the chat, so if someone tells me, just drops a link or just says how much GMLRS payload has, how much payload does the GMLRS has?
I think it's 200 pounds, but I'm not sure.
100 pounds. Yeah. I thought it was 90, but it's 100 is about the same.
Yeah, it's 200 pounds. I think
200 pounds.
I'm looking at the website right now and it says 195. So
Yeah, so I'm looking at 290 kilograms. Yeah, but this is bigger, so a bit bigger, has bigger range, so it's a good addition, and the range is extended. Not too much, but still it expands the capabilities. People must understand that you cannot fire the HIMARS all the time from the You don't want your HIMARS to be too close to the front lines, so that's one of the considerations that everyone has to take.
Dude.
And
We just need to attach our bombs to balloons, and that's a problem solved.
yeah, balloons. And
This is
balloons
it's
all
war
over.
balloons, dude. We're
And there
going
is
back.
one. I heard that there is one huge balloon floating over the United States right
Yeah,
now.
dude, it's war balloons are back. Like they disappeared for like I don't know, like what, 3 centuries, but they're back, baby. Anyways, I don't know what else to say. Yeah, the HIMARS gunboat, that would be fun.
Yeah,
I know we're gonna have CJ on the stream at some point, and then we can get into some of this stuff in better detail. he just can't come on right now. But at some point we're gonna have CJ. But yeah, so that's all we really have to talk about. So we'll see you on Tuesday, I think, or maybe I don't know, probably on Tuesday. And thank you for coming, Constantine.
yeah. Thank you everyone for coming. Unfortunately, then I had to multitask a bit. It was great having you all here. I think we had the most popular, the biggest stream at this moment. We had around 150 people at the peak, and it's absolutely great having you here. Just keep coming. Have trust in us. We'll have more content. We'll have more people. Yeah, and I will dig out of that ice. I made so many pictures today, walking down just my neighborhood, and yeah, we have like a disaster here. All the trees, 50% of the trees have fallen. Sort of a stepping out of the Ukraine context. But yeah, we're gonna, we're gonna make it even better in the future. But cheers. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. See you later, everybody.